Go ahead.
Albert Einstein stated that mankind created the atomic bomb, but a mouse would never construct a mousetrap. And I think that that quote perfectly exemplifies the controversy surrounding the atomic bomb, especially in today's view. At one point, when the bomb was first dropped, it had a lot of support from Americans, as it was an end to the war, as they say. But as times go on and people have really looked into it further, it can be seen that the bomb is a little bit more controversial than initially thought. And today, I'll be talking about kind of a brief overview of World War II and how the U.S. first got the bombs initially, and then talk about the for and against sides of using the bomb, and then give you my own personal opinion after that. So what did cause World War II and the atomic bomb research to begin with? Obviously, we've all taken U.S. history probably a few times throughout our lives already, but Germany started invading countries and regaining land that they felt that they knew was theirs from World War I, and had been taken from them since they lost World War I. That was a part of the original Treaty of Versailles, and then with that, Japan also started attacking into Eastern Asia and taking over land as well to build their empire. Italy started expanding as well. They become the Axis powers, and then eventually Japan attacks the U.S. Because the U.S. had put trade embargoes on them, and we had stopped giving them essential goods such as scrap metals, things like that, that helped Japan in their war efforts. So Japan was kind of mad at us, and that's really the only explanation we can understand as to why Pearl Harbor would have happened, which obviously leads the U.S. into the war and into the Allied forces. And the rest of the war, obviously, is history and something that you guys should probably know. And then in terms of the atomic bomb research, according to USHistory.org, their article, Atomic Bomb Dropped on Hiroshima. In 1939, German physicists discovered the power produced by splitting uranium atoms, which forced Albert Einstein to actually write a letter to the President FDR at the time, kind of pleading for some sort of atomic bomb research, because if Germany was able to own that power, who knows what they would have done. So that led into a $2 billion investment, eventually giving us atomic bombs. So that's kind of a quick little background. So now we're going to move into the for and against sides of the usage of the atomic bomb. Now, not all of these are necessarily true, or you might believe with. These are just the reasonings that I found through my various sources. So one of them obviously was what the U.S. deems Japan's senseless attack on the U.S. So with them sneak attacking Pearl Harbor, it wasn't very honorable, as in war they talk about an honorable war, things along those lines. And it killed U.S. civilians, it crippled our naval fleet, and obviously we had to retaliate. And so some people justify that our sneak attack on them and their civilians, and Hiroshima and Nagasaki were both actually military cities, so they had factories and other things like that to help push the war effort. They say that, some people say it's fair game, that they did a sneak attack on us, we did a sneak attack on them. Sort of thing. Truman states in his diaries that, who is the president that actually dropped the bombs, that it was supposed to be a quicker end of the war. Conventional bombings weren't working, so you're talking fire raids, traditional heavy artillery, things like that. And that can be stated or found in the U.S. National Park Service article, Harry Truman's Decision to Use the Atomic Bombs. It stated that between 1944 to 1945, so that's the year leading up to the end of the war, 806,000 Japanese people were killed due to traditional bombings, whereas both atomic bombs together only killed about 400,000. Obviously, that was in 2 days. The destruction was a lot higher. Just showed that conventional bombings over a long course of time with a lot of casualties weren't really pushing Japan any closer to surrender. So something very big and would have to happen to really push them over the edge. And then, And then the last thing is something that very few people know. Leaflets, which were little notes, were actually dropped down onto the cities days before the attacks in the Japanese language, stating that the U.S. government has obtained this massive bomb and it will literally wipe everything out and you have to leave. Like, this is the government, because Japan didn't agree to the U.S.'s terms of surrender, which is what forced us to drop the bombs. But we did warn all the people to get out of the cities. So that's something that very few people know as well. Moving forward to the against side, many believe that Japan was on the verge of surrender and would have surrendered within the few months following the atomic bombs regardless, due to resources dwindling and their sense of urgency deplenishing as well, given that Hitler and Germany had already surrendered and most of the other Axis forces had. So they said there was kind of no need to do it, and it was more of a demonstration of power, which we wanted to kind of flex our muscles to the Soviet Union so that they knew not to mess with us, and because this war is actually what brought us into becoming a true superpower. So to show that the U.S. wasn't something to mess with in quotation marks, and people actually believe that this is one of the this event is one of the biggest events that led into the Cold War. Obviously, it caused another almost 20 years, around 20 years worth of hardships and for the American people. And obviously, the biggest one is that civilians died, and at a higher rate than I think every other attack in history, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, with all those, you can see the for and the against side, which would lead into my personal belief, which is the biggest argument I see for saying that the atomic bombs weren't justified is the civilian aspect, which I completely understand. But I do believe that the U.S. Gave the civilians enough knowledge of the attacks, hence the leaflets, and also every American is technically a part of, or not American, every person of a country is a part of the war effort. So in America, we took rations, we collected metal to give back to the U.S. and everything, so we could continue our war efforts. And these people, everyone is a part of the war efforts, and sometimes civilians get caught in the crosshairs. So I don't look at that as something to deem it as unjustifiable, because no war is really a good war. And with that, I believe that the atomic bombs were justified, and I appreciate you guys listening to me.